your very early morning Roxy Soxy.
Good normal time of the day for me, Tammin. I mean, this is 3 days in a row for us. You getting sick of me?
I know. You're making me get up at 5 freaking a.m. I don't like this. I don't like that. Literally, when I wake up in Australia, your day is over. So
Yes.
every single person has texted or emailed me or just decided to get off the chest, whatever they want to. And I wake up at 6 a.m. and there's like a barrage of emails and text messages. And I'm like, I'm so depressed already.
See, Eva, what was the rule we learned yesterday? We do not open our phone and immediately look at emails, texts, social media.
No, but I do. I don't even like go to the bathroom. I don't even go pee. I like definitely go check my emails before any of that happens. I will hold it.
You're like, I will not do it.
I will not do it.
Yes. So we're on this really great streak, I feel like, right? It's like day 3 of all these killer interviews, and I am so stoked for our next guest. I know we've been manifesting this one a lot, right?
I know. I used to for many years. I would, my guilty pleasure would be like I work so hard and then I put the kids to bed and then I turn on Shark Tank. It's actually one of my favorite shows. All the people on the show are pretty extraordinary, but they have such an amazing dynamic. And there's a lot of shows that don't seem to be symbiotic and actually work. And that show really does. Yes, of course, it's about investing and people building their dreams, but it's so much more than that. There's like this cohesiveness and connection with the hosts. And one of them, who's not just a host of Shark Tank, she's also like built a massive empire. Can you explain who we have on today? Because I actually dreamt about her all night last night. And she was giving me advice. She was giving me like advice about what I should do with my money or whatever in my dreams. So maybe she'll do that in real life now too.
Oh my gosh. No, that would be the best. Gone into like the best Barbara K hole ever, just listening to her and like reading all the things she says. But if you don't already know her, which I think everyone does at this point, but she is an investor. She is an author. She is a podcast host. She created one of the most successful real estate companies, the Corcoran Group, in the world. She, as you mentioned, is one of the stars of Shark Tank. We love her wit. We love her fun. And this is why I think she would work perfectly for us on our next Girls Night Out. You want to hear?
Yeah, tell me.
She loves a fine, dry white wine, Pinot Grigio, as much as we do. As much as we do.
Oh, yes. We like a good white wine on a Friday night.
Yes. So without further ado, please, let's welcome Miss Barbara Corcoran.
Woo! We had the wine right here. I'm in the mood. It's late in New York. I'm ready.
Yes. We're so excited.
You can drink at 5 a.m. in Australia, can't you? Isn't that okay?
Not okay.
Not okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Barbara. We are going to dive into your story. I did like Roxy was saying, I did a deep dive into your story, and I didn't know this, but you actually had undiagnosed. My brother has it too, dyslexia, and you were labeled as a kid who wasn't that smart, who was probably not going to achieve what you were going to achieve, and you said that you used that. And it actually is what helped you build your empire. Can you explain a little bit, a bit about that around that time of your life?
Yeah, of course. Most kids who have learning differences, as they're more politically correctly called today, they discover them somewhere between the ages of 7 and 10, 11. And they're usually the dunce at school. That was my situation, as it was for so many other kids. But what dyslexia, in its simplest terms, is a child has the ability, almost from the time they're 1.5, to think and put pieces together in pictures, whereas the dyslexic child, or the more normal child, as it's called, can think in symbols. The dyslexic person never learns to think beyond pictures, so they can only understand words that they can picture, like dog. They'll never understand the word there or her, because they can't picture what that looks like. And so when you have that liability, of course, the downside is you can't learn to read or write. And I didn't learn to read or write till I was in 7th grade. And being the dumb kid in school, being made to read out loud is a young child's version of hell on earth, really. You learn shame in the classroom at a time in your life you're trying to find out what you're made of and who you might be, So it's a terrible curse when a child is not diagnosed and doesn't get special help. But the upside is the great majority of phenomenal entrepreneurs I've met who have built from scratch think in pictures, and so many of them are dyslexic. And so when you can think in pictures, it's a 4-dimensional picture. So you could see a plan, you could see like a structure of what's going to happen from the sky down. It's not just flat dimensional. And it becomes a tremendous asset. And you also become hyper aware of people. So you don't see a child who's saying, hi, Joe, but you see a child who's saying, hi, Joe, he's doubting you and he's self-conscious about his t-shirt. You pick up those cues. And so it makes you hypersensitive, which is a negative as a child, but as an adult, it makes you people smart. And those are the 2 traits that honestly, if I didn't have, I would have never built a business. I'm more people smart than most people I know. I'll brag about it because I have such narrow talents. And the other thing I can do is see in living color what's going to come down and see it as though it actually exists because I can picture it so clearly. And so that's my wrap up, or my best description of what goes on and why it's a liability and why it can be a tremendous asset if people could identify it in themselves and use it.
Well, I think too, you're such a good team builder and brand builder because you know what your strengths are, but you also know what your shortcomings are. So you're able to construct a team of players that are able to play with each other. And that's sort of how Tammin and I are. We're sort of like a yin and a yang. The things that she's good at, I might not be so good at. And the things that, I excel in, maybe she doesn't excel in as much.
Excuse me, I excel in everything, Roxy.
Yeah, I'm fine, but she's absolutely
I'm
perfect.
pretty perfect.
There's nothing
so
she
true.
doesn't excel in. But it's this amazing sort of ability that you have, which I think is such a valuable lesson. That you're able to see in people, those kinds of things. So is that something that you think you just over time sort of learned, or was that already just so innate in you?
No, I think that was a part of the benefit of learning differently. What happens, and I'm sure anyone could identify with this, if you're a loser in any situation, you never look at the next loser the same way again. You develop something called empathy. If you're a kid like with horrific acne, you can't like look at someone who has a problem 10 years later and look at that kid and go, oh, how disgusting. Your heart breaks for them. What happens when your heart breaks and you learn empathy? You can get in the shoes. You have an innate ability to see it from the other guy's perspective. Why is that important? It's important in hiring the right people. It's important in negotiating. It's important in choosing the right partners. It's important in so many regards. That simple card of empathy, there's not a lot of value put on it today. It's kind of like people take sides. This idea of walking in someone else's shoes is in short supply. But when it comes to building anything, camaraderie, a community, a family, a workplace, that empathy card, an appreciation for the other guy and the way they might feel differently is tremendous in building a team. And if you apply it to business and dollars and cents, you can really build a very successful business because you're so, your strong suit is with people. That empathy, I think, is the root of it. I'm sure there's more involved, but that's
It's interesting because we've had a lot of guests in this field on this show, and they've also said vulnerability. They've also said, when you are the head of a team and you come across like you never do anything wrong and everything's perfect and everyone must be at the top standard, what happens is people, they have a lot of fear. And when they have a lot of fear, they're kind of not doing their best job. So when you said empathy, vulnerability, like showing people that you're also human. And I think that that's one of the best things and why I'm so drawn to you as a successful woman. But, not everyone it can be as successful as you, meaning, you have there's something about you that is different than a lot of people, because they say most people stay average, right? Most people stay stuck, they stay average, not because they don't want, a lot of people want to be very successful, but they really don't know how. So there has to be something about you, that there's traits within you that is the secret to your success. Do you know what those are? Do you know how you've built such an amazing business, and people who want to build a business like yours and follow in your footsteps, that they can follow those traits or those ideas?
I have to say I cheat on this one because I learned it from my mom just by example, as we all do with parents. You're going to do what they do, not what they say, obviously. Right? But with my mother, she had the great ability to see her 10 kids and decide almost on the day of their birth what she thought their gift was.
Wow.
That seems like humble, what is it? Hubbo jubbo, or whatever that word is, witchcraft kind of stuff. You know? She wasn't that kind of woman, but she really believed if you had a gift, you had that gift. And as stubborn as she might be, she believed it heart and soul. And by the time you were 3, you believed it. I mean, you're so influenced. If somebody's going to tell you you're a walking God, you're going to eventually, by 3 years old, think you're a walking God, maybe, you know? And we all did that. For me, she said, I had a wonderful imagination. For my brother T, she said, he's going to be a fabulous dancer. For my sister, she's going to be the most caring human being in the world. She was uncannily right on everything. And so what I think, other than I think at the root of choosing good people and being able to build teams, I believe I have an innate optimism that everybody does have something exceptional. And it's just a matter of figuring out what it is and how you could use it. And I selfishly, in a real way, with anyone I met or hired, I'm always thinking, how can I use them? And use maybe is the wrong word because it sounds like use, it's like abuse. I don't mean that. I mean, like, what do they have that's magic, and how does it fit my universe? How can I take advantage of it to help them and to help me? And that was always my agenda. And even if I meet someone at a cocktail party, it's not really a conversation, it's an interview, honestly. I don't know how I'm going to use you, but I'm thinking.
Where can I put you in my business?
Yes.
So I think having a spin, I think about these people who think they've remained average. And I would say half people who remain average are very happy average. There's nothing wrong with that. They're a lot happier, really successful people, honestly. All right. But if they're average and wishing and like they've shortfall themselves, they wish they could be more. I think it has a lot to do with who they bumped into, who saw the light, who didn't, whether it be the parent, whether it be the school teacher that took you around the bend, whether it be an influential friend or an older person, or someone you ran into business who believed in you, a boss that got behind you. I think any of those are simply pot luck. So what happens between the person who's average and doesn't want to be average and the person who really doesn't want to be average, the person who exceeds average? A lot of it, I hate to just write off, but a lot of it's luck. I mean, if I didn't get that guy walking into my diner counter and giving me $1,000 to quit my job as a waitress and start a real estate business, would I have met anybody else? I doubt it. There was nobody in New Jersey like that at that time. He was 1 in a billion. And so that you have to really credit, some people say God, I call it luck, the roll of the die. But for those people who were disappointed, I think very often they needed a hand somewhere along the way that they didn't get.
And I love the story that you tell about when this first boyfriend left with the secretary and how he said that, how he said you would never be successful without him, and how that drove you like hell. You were not going to be not successful without him. So like, can you give our listeners a little bit of like that fire, like what that ignited in you?
No, they say beware the scorn of a woman. I guess I discovered that day. Right? I never thought of myself as aggressive. I thought of myself as a hard worker. Hard worker. I felt like I never met anybody who could equal my work ethic, except my mother, who exceeded it with the 10 of us. But that being said, when he said, "You'll never succeed without me," it was insult to insult. Bad enough he ran over my secretary, who's better looking than me. She was ugly. I said, maybe she's smarter, you know? She was better looking, younger. I'm like, I was already scarred. But when Ramon said to me, "You'll never succeed without me," when I left him and started my own firm, because I just didn't want to see them after a year, loving each other in my old desk. And,
did you give that desk away? I hope.
Yes.
Sold it,
burned it.
I left the office, so I hope I read one day that desk burned to the ground.
Right, burned in flames.
But I must say that that was the day I discovered the power of an insult. And you don't know what you're made of. You know, some people are perfect victims, really, and there's so many reasons to be a victim in life. My God, life deals you enough stuff where you really feel a victim. But I didn't think of myself as a victim. I just thought of myself as a good plugger, worker. But when he said that, I turned into, I don't know if I turned into a woman or an animal that day or a savage, but I knew I would rather die. I'd do anything than let him see me not succeed. I felt that fire that I had never felt before. And thank God he gave me a gift of a lifetime, because I look back at the many, the trials and tribulations and the impossible times you come through in business that we all do if you're building a business from scratch. And I can tell you, if I didn't have those words echoing in my ear, I would have more graciously failed many times. But I didn't mind failing in front of my people. I didn't mind calling my parents. I didn't mind my friends. You know, they all love me. They're going to accept me. But the idea that he would go, "Did you hear she failed?" I'm like, ah. And so it gave me that fire that I really needed, that extra. It was really a kiss. He gave me a weird kind of a kiss of good luck, actually, you know, in hindsight. So I'm so thankful. I don't feel it at the time, but life's funny. You know, well, most of the bad things always turn good when you look back. A lot of it's stinking thinking, but a lot of it's true, you know?
Yeah, I totally believe in, you know, using your pain into purpose. I was, I talk about this a lot on my social media. I was like 200 pounds and I was bullied severely when I was a kid. And I remembered there's this one moment I remember I was sitting at this school dance and this guy, it was my first crush. And I thought he was going to walk up to me and say, like, "Would you like a dance?" And he came up to me and he said, "Hey, Tam." And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "You need to go to Jenny Craig." And I remember that moment. That moment changed my entire life. I decided to be healthy. This is in the beginning, and then I developed some issues later. But in the beginning, I decided to be healthy. I exercised, I ate well, I lost 100 pounds. And then I got on a TV show, which is one of the biggest TV shows in the world within 5 months. And it was like that moment. And like you said, if the secretary hadn't been on your desk that you're going to burn to the ground, or he hadn't said, "Go to Jenny Craig," I don't know if I would have gotten that push of that pain. Maybe it was that pain that just turned my life into purpose. You know, one of the questions I really wanted to ask you was, you know, we are a female driven podcast and, you know, we talk about this a lot in the room. We have a lot of men, you know, when we're in business, there's a lot of men in the room. Do you feel like you have to prove yourself more and to work harder because you are a woman?
No, I have to say that never crossed my mind ever when I was in business. I was more acutely aware of the clubs that are part of society, the clubs that I wasn't a member of. And self-conscious about not being a member, like the old boys club. The real estate industry was owned by men, driven by men, third generation. I was a kid from New Jersey, didn't know how to dress. I mean, did I fit in? No. Did they look down on me? Yes. Was it a gift that they looked down on me? Yes, because I remember promising early on that subtle insult, that quiet insult that sometimes are the most painful ones, you know, the subtle, and me thinking to myself, wait till I'm your number one competitor. I mean, it was preposterous that I would even have that thought. But I remember seeking comfort in that, you know, but I never walked into a room, honestly, not thinking a female was an advantage, because I had rooms of men in navy blue and dark gray suits. I'd walk in and I had great legs, my one good ass.
Yes.
I was noticed, and they never knew my name, but the girl. I was clearly a girl. If I had tried to mimic them, I don't think it would have worked. But I don't think I ever thought of men at all as men and me as a female, or asset or liability. I think I thought of them as competitors, because I'm so competitive by nature that I would go after things they wanted when I didn't even want them. I would just go after them to see if I could take them away, which is kind of sick if you think about it. But I think I just was so focused on wanting to compete and win that the rest of the detail kind of faded to the side. And today here, I really, you know, my office here is 90% female. My Corcoran group was 90% female, not through choice, but because the men didn't want to work for me. They didn't want to walk into a sea of 500 women. I mean, what healthy guy wants to do that, right? But yes, for me, that wasn't a card. I know I should say it was, or blah, blah, blah. It's a big part of being a woman today, but not for me. It didn't play that way. You know, I was too busy worried about, could I buy a nice suit to wear, a pretty dress? Could I pay the phone bill? Or could I take a taxi? Or could I talk the client into walking 12 blocks because I didn't have the money to pay the taxi? You know, my mind was on all those survival things versus like, oh God, I'm a woman, you know?
Right.
You know, we had an episode earlier this week with a guy that came on our show, guy in business, and he, we got onto the subject of women harnessing their sexual power. Not necessarily doing anything unethical, but just, harnessing that sort of innate sexual power that we sometimes have when we walk into a group of men, right? An office. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that is the right thing to do, to kind of, be able to use that as a playing chip? Or do you think that that's something that should be left at the door?
Course. Why would you leave it at the door? You think the guy who got the tailor-made shirt and worked out at the gym, and you could see how his chest is carved and he's got the right cool Gucci tie, you think he's not playing his card?
Right.
I mean, leans over and go, whoa, is a hot guy. Of course. I mean, should you go in looking like a stripper? Probably a little too far. Whatever your asset is, whatever your gift is, whatever your gifts are, whatever looks best, can put forward. Why wouldn't you put it forward on day-to-day living and business? I always did. I can distinctly remember consciously telling men in business meetings, once I started meeting with the Donald Trumps and the big developers of the world, sitting in the business meeting and agreeing with their stupid ideas. Honestly, say, amazing, amazing. Was I right being phony? Was I right being the girl going, amazing? And they're flattered and they're flattered? Perhaps not. But I learned that in 20 minutes, I would get my idea across if I just. So, you just manipulation, I guess, female manipulation. Women have.
That's what we talked about.
Yep, that's it.
But let me tell you something. Men have traits that they manipulate with. They're using with their masculinity. And I think to hold back on any of your feminine charm and ways and attractiveness, not to sleep to the top, so to speak, but why not? It's good marketing. It's physical, personal marketing. We brand everything today. Why not brand yourself and bring your best asset forward?
Yeah.
Crazy not to,
right?
And it's that book, we're having the author on this show, but the 48 Laws of Power, and one of that laws is seduction. It doesn't have to be like Roxy was saying. It doesn't have to be like you walk in the room and you've got your clothes off. But there is a different feel, and the room and the atoms in the air changes when a woman walks into a male room. And then it can go both ways. Either people want to listen to you or they don't. But I agree with you. How many times have I sat down with the head of Sony BMG when I had a record contract and just tell everyone that their ideas were so great so that I would be heard? And women, and I believe, I was talking about this before, and like people think manipulation is a dirty word, but I feel like women have had to learn how to manipulate a situation because they haven't been heard in so many ways. And they haven't been, if they're in a room, they're not listened to as much. And they're not taken as seriously. So women have had to learn how to manipulate around a situation.
But you know what? Think about it. The men have had many generations to learn how to manipulate around the boardroom, the golf course, knowing the right power players and having access. All right. And there's no apologies on that. And there shouldn't be. I think men should take advantage of whatever they've got going for them. But I think whatever is, there are no rules about what men use, what women use. You use your advantages, whatever they might be, because who in life really wants to say to someone, don't use your strengths in life? Of course you use your strengths in life. You want the best out of living, right? And our children the same. Very different today, I must say. The women that I hire today are vastly different than the women I hired 30 years ago to build my company as I was coming up through the ranks. They're more confident. They speak up. They're more heard by it because they have a lot of female bosses. That helps a heck of a lot. And they're smarter. I don't know if they're smarter or know they're smarter, and therefore you hear they're smart. But I find it's a whole different generation now. There has been a tremendous change in the I don't like the word self-empowerment, but this self-confirmation. I think so. And I think we've come a long way, maybe not in Wall Street with your head slamming against the ceiling, but we have come a long way in our own self-power. And I think with that unleashed, it gains momentum like a wave rolling in, Yeah. I'm not worried about that at all. Yeah.
I think it's interesting too with the changing of the tides for women in business, also moms in business, right? Because it's like for so long. It's also fighting for that voice. We were trying to, get somewhere in business. And sometimes people think it's not smart to hire a mom because she's got other responsibilities at home. But I find if you want to get the job done, hire a mom because they're some of the best time management people in the world. They have so much to get done in such a constricted amount of time that they're some of the best candidates to hire.
I must say that when I was hiring as a young woman, I'm embarrassed to admit that I had that card in my head. If I hired a woman that was great sales potential, because I made my living by choosing accurately who would make a phenomenal salesperson, which isn't so easily done when you don't have experience. How do you know somebody's going to be a powerhouse salesperson? Very hard to assess. I learned how to do that as best I could over the years. But the women that I hired then, very often, if a young woman, I would always question, oh, you're engaged. Oh, you're planning a family. There was a timeline in my head. I was a boss, building my business, reliant on that individual. I want to know how long I had them. Did that get in my way of not hiring them? And no. Would it get in my way of seeing them differently? Yes. I must admit, day one, I saw them as not a part-timer, but a short-timer, a light short-timer. So I didn't invest myself as well in a woman who was like 35, come back to the workforce. Her kids were already late high school and she wanted to prove she could do something. Those were the women I built my empire with. So I think it does factor in about hiring moms who really aren't committed to staying at work. But when you get a mother who wants to stay at work and do both, the aggressiveness they bring to the platform is amazing. They're usually your best mothers. They're not unanswered mothers who wish they could have done something more with their life and sad about themselves. And now I'm stereotyping. I don't mean everyone. I'm just saying, basically, you know what I'm thinking as I'm talking, I'm realizing for myself. I basically, I would try to hire happy people. And where they were in their lifespan had a lot to do with who I chose and who I didn't. So if they were not happy till they started the family, I would see unhappiness coming from me, and that as a great worker. If they were looking for happiness because they hadn't found it yet, they were right up my alley. Come with me, Yeah. So I'm not sure even what I just said. I think I went a big fat circle.
It was still amazing.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I think in business, though, I think that there's so much untapped potential with mother. I mean, I have two small kids. I work harder now than I've ever worked. The only issue that I have is there's not a lot of space or facilities or anything so that I can work at my truest potential. Like if I was working for a company and I was working my butt off, but still had a 3-year-old, it'd be so great if we could have the conversations where like maybe there's a childcare in that company or something like that. So the woman can work her ass off and be the best of her ability, but she still has, some kind of help. And especially in America, I'm from Australia. So that is just innately in you work for a company here, they have childcare, you have paid time, all those things actually happen here, but it's hard for the mother to work at her top utmost abilities when there's just nothing, there's no support in any way, even if she could be incredible for a business.
Yes. Tammin, you touch on something that is so true about America and so backward about America compared to many other countries. Not all, but many countries. I have to say to you, I had an interesting experience. I had no children till I had my first baby at 46. And that was after 7 years of in vitro. I didn't think Tommy would ever come. But once I had that baby, I really didn't know what it was like for the women who were working and also raising children. From day one, the day he was born, had sibling rivalry, fighting in my soul every day of my life. I wanted to be a super mom at work. I wanted to be a super mom at my son, and putting those pieces together. And I had the money, certainly by then. I had a big business to hire the best help, my best support, but still, it was an enormous challenge because you're in two places when you're a mom. I don't care. I'm not sure if it's really often true of men, but it is certainly true of mothers. There's that rivalry going on. But I could have never built my business, never, if I had been drawn and quartered between business and kids. I couldn't have. I wouldn't have had the focus. But to your exact point, it is such a shortfall that businesses don't have that. They would be paid back 5 times over.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Proper kid and have peace of mind through a work day and maybe go and have lunch at that. it would be like you would work for 2/3 of the pay or maybe even half the pay even.
Right.
We have that, because it's a quality of life issue. We are moving more toward people demanding quality of life because of COVID. People have really sized up what's worth it and what ain't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think we're in the midst of a subtle change on all those fronts, including which you just spoke about. I think it's changing.
And when you're spending more for the childcare than you're making it work, it just doesn't make
Yeah, it
sense
doesn't
for a
make
lot of people.
sense.
Like, how do people work so hard and then all their money's gone by getting, and then there's that conversation, well, then you shouldn't have had a child. But we are creating the people of tomorrow. Like, if everyone thought that, then humanity would stop. So, we need to keep having children. We just need to make it work for businesses and, for ourselves as well,
Well, maybe women will bring about that change. Women who grow very large businesses today and could afford to see that happen. Maybe we'll see it start right there. It seems appropriate it would be starting there. But yet, as I'm standing here, I'm thinking, what companies are doing that right now that are female-led? And I don't really think there are interested about it.
Yeah.
Or not in America that I know of.
Or else it's very small. You're right. I know for me, I put off having kids because I was afraid of how that would affect my career. For me, I kind of pushed it off, and it's sad because had I known, it would only enrich my entire life. So then therefore my career would be enriched. It's like it's a cyclical effect,
Roxy, could you imagine if you concluded or waited so long that in the end you decided just not to have kids, or maybe never made the decision? I mean, I hit my knees and say, thank God for Tom and Katie. I mean, I've had such a fulfilling life on every end, nothing I would take back. Bury me tomorrow, I'm going to go down with a smile on my face. But that one section of, the ability to be a mother, I mean, it's not for everybody. I have a baby sister, one of 10, who never wants kids, never had them, will never contemplate it. It's not for her, but it's for you. Oh my God, it makes your teeth hurt thinking about being able to do that and missing out on that. I'd have to kill myself.
Yeah. So you talk about in vitro because you said you went through in vitro for 7 years. I had a lot of miscarriages. So I had my first daughter at 28, and then I wanted to have another one pretty soon after that. As an actor, you can kind of do that in your hiatus. And I just kept having miscarriages after miscarriages after miscarriages. And that is the first time, like, I've always felt, because of the bullying in my past, I've always felt that little nugget of failure, right? And like being a loser or failing because of the bullying, but I've overcome that. That was the first real time that I was faced with, oh my goodness, maybe I'm going to fail at this. Maybe I'm going to fail at having a child. And you spent 7 years in vitro fertilization, in vitro. And how did that make you feel? Like, you were so successful as a woman in business, but yet you weren't being able to get pregnant. Did that failure card come in, and did it like affect your whole world and what you were doing at the time?
Well, I've always had the great ability to focus my whole life. So when I was at work, I was working, 14, 16-hour days every day of my life, and loved it. It wasn't even work, obviously. But when I got, you wait the 10 days with in vitro, and then you find out, right, when they implant you with the embryo. On that 10th day, my secretary, Sylvia, who's like my Jewish mom, I called her. She was 30 years older than me and so caring to me in every way. And Sylvia would say, I'm so sorry. And she had gotten the call from the doctor. I'm telling you, as weird as it sounds, and I had no right to think that way, but I thought I was pregnant for those 10 days. And to hear that, I felt, I swear to God, it felt each time like a death of a child. Like, I had no right to feel that way. What did I do with it? I went back to work. I just sat at my desk and tackled the next project. My work saved me through that period. If I hadn't had an overwhelming job and overwhelmingly in love with the people that worked for me and my partners and everything, I don't think I could have stuck it out that long. I maybe would have made 2 attempts and called it a day. I discovered later that I could have adopted. I should have thought of that sooner. It's a lot less painful. I adopted my second child. 3 months later, I have a baby. No pain.
Yeah.
That's a way to do it.
Terrible thing. I don't know how you would come. I didn't think of that as a miscarriage myself, which you probably did, Tavin. For me, it was the loss of a child that I had, which of course was ridiculous because I never had.
Still feels that way though.
So terrible. It's a personal, it's a personal, not shame, but
Mm.
the way I used to think. I used to think my mother had 10 kids like rabbits. My sisters had 3, 4 kids each. My brother's wives got pregnant. I thought I had a God-given right to be a mother. And when I got over that, oh, I can't get pregnant. Oh, what do you mean? You know,
Yeah.
very hard to accept. It's almost like saying to a man, I'm sorry, sir, you can never work again for the rest of your life. It's equivalent to that because for a
I
woman,
think so. Yeah.
God-given right. And if it's taken away, nobody's taken away. But somehow I always picture that as part of I'm ready.
Yeah.
Baby.
Do you know, it's also like, I think, a valuable lesson in parenthood in that it shows you don't have control, right? Ultimately, like when you have kids and like things start happening, it's kind of just shows you that, in fact, you are not as in control as you feel, like,
Yeah.
right? And you have to sort of surrender to it and keep trying. But that, I think, too, is really important.
If the truth be known, I had something else going for me, which was something that a lot of people don't have. I could afford to go 7.
Yeah.
Right.
At that point, I think each try was about $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
I know many would-be parents who had saved the money to try once. That's all they had. I mean, I never took that for granted because I was aware of, thank God I made money or I couldn't do this.
Right. Right.
So that's wealth plays a part there too on options, always in any.
And I still think that when you're saying maybe it's not shame, I do feel like women are taught to be like, that's why we only say that we're pregnant 3 months in, right? I wish that I had said I was pregnant. So I lost my first, I call it a baby, at almost 3 months. So I birthed that baby, whatever, on the floor in our home, and it was formed in some way. And it's like, I didn't tell anyone for so long. I didn't even, and again, social media, you don't have to share everything. But then the minute I shared my miscarriage stories, I felt like other women felt seen. And it's like, there is that inherent shame that women feel when they can't get pregnant, because like you said, it's what we're meant to do. It's what we should do. It's what our bodies are designed to do. So when you want it and you can't have it, it's a massive shock to the system. And it's that shame that really, I think women feel shame more than men do. I mean, maybe that's a generalization, but I feel like we've been taught to feel shame.
And you know what else I think is a big part of that, not to belabor the subject, but I think being not allowed to have a cup for your love makes a hell of a difference. Like I felt I have so much love to give. I know I'd be a great mom. I had a great mom. I'd be a great mom. I know. And I wanted to give that somewhere, and it's stuck with yourself. You can't pour your love. I mean, I pour your love on your husband for the first 7 years or so. And then it's like, okay, see you later.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The kids now. And then the kids grow up and you're like, wait, we have to talk to each other.
I warn you both because I'm old enough to be a mother, and I can tell you when your kids are grown, when they're in their 20s, you're about to learn the new lesson that you can't control them and you don't have them anymore. I am still in shock with my 28-year-old son that he married somebody and that he doesn't want to come for dinner every Sunday. I'm angry every week. You loan your kids. I would start adjusting your brain to the reality that sooner or later they're going to leave. In my little mind, they're never going to leave me. I'm too great.
I know, because they're so needy, right? My two are so young that they need me, mom. And I'm just like, oh, but it goes so fast. Life just goes I feel like it's moving so fast.
I mean, you're so wise acknowledging that, because I'm telling you, every woman who's raised children will tell you the younger years are the best years of your life. And they are as exhausted as you are. You can't make ends meet. If you're rattled to death, it's still the most delicious years of your life loving your child.
It's the greatest source of pain and the greatest source of love, like all wrapped into one.
Well, God has a sense of humor. What do
right?
Those little butts, because I've got a 2.5-year-old, one of them, and it's just like, I just want to bite her. And she's always like, Mom, stop. And I'm like, I can't, I need to eat you. And then the problem is you just want more. Like I've got 2 and I'm like, well, I probably shouldn't have a third, but like, I just don't want that age to stop, it's because
Yeah.
you see the world again. I think when you have children, for me, this is how I can explain it. Someone's like, what is it like having kids? I started to believe in magic again. I started to believe in like, well, what is the sky? What is touch? What is smell? Like, we don't stop long enough because we're all working women and we're just constantly going to the next thing. And it's like, you don't take that time to just smell a flower that you're walking past, or to actually feel the rain. And as trite as that might sound, it's just like, I feel that we start to live again. We're reborn, and we start to see life again. And that was just the biggest thing for me, is just when I saw my child come out of my body, I was like, I believe in kind of all of it, manifestation, luck, God, the universe, all of it. And it was just like, there's something special that is far greater than I can even comprehend when I saw a human come out of my body. I know everyone talks about having babies, and like, we actually create human beings in our bodies, and then they come out into the world. I think that's pretty wild.
Let's give them a little credit. They had something to do with it.
Well, they were there for the 2 seconds of fun. Right. What am I lying? The half a second. Come on.
If you're lucky. But it teaches you to live in the now, and it's like, stop and, like you're saying, stop and smell the roses, and like, don't think too much about tomorrow just yet, and it's for people like us that are going, working, it's a really valuable lesson to learn, I think.
So, I think it's valuable to learn. And yet I don't think women or moms as a whole really practice it nearly as much as they can. When I look back at all the years and all the things and all the parties and all the trips and all the wonderful occasions with my 2 kids, and I think, what was the best time of my life? Do you know, the same picture comes to my mind was with my son, when we got something in a big box and it sat in the living room because I didn't want to break it down. And he sat in the box and asked me to get in with him. And I met him that day and every day that week inside the box when I came home from work, and we sat for an hour doing nothing in the box. And it's funny why that stays with me as the most delicious. I don't know what we talked about. I didn't even know if he was happy, but my memory of it was so much in the moment. But what was I really doing when I got out of the box? Worrying why he couldn't read. What's wrong with him? Get him the right tutor. Which school is he going to get admitted to? Does he have the right friends? I mean, the number of hours I spent on anticipating what was next was probably 100 to 1 compared to anything I did in the moment. And not that I have any regrets, but if I could get pregnant again, I would get pregnant again, for sure at my age. But I would just almost make a mental chart of how many moments I got out of the week versus how many times I was projecting to the next thing I was attending to. It's just, I still don't think I still am not enough in the moment in everything I do, but with your children, because it's a one chance and goes by so fast, I just think it's worth really paying attention to that. I feel sad in one moment, honest to God.
I know, like, I'm like literally about to cry. I'm like, I don't want to cry in front of Barbara. I'm not on her show.
I have my wife.
She turned me down. So you think, because one of my questions was, if you could tell your younger self something, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm like, I've been here before, but I've been like this since I was 17 years old. I've just been like, okay, like, what could I tell my younger self? And, my thing that I would tell my younger self, even though I'm still in my 30s, is like, enjoy the journey. Because for me, I've been a child actor since I was 14, and I have traveled the world. I've been so lucky. I've been with Richard Branson at dinner. Like, I've met some amazing people. I've met you, and I've had an extraordinary life in my 30s. And yet I don't fully know if I enjoyed the journey. I was always so afraid that I was going to lose what I had, whether it was I was going to lose the TV show I was on and then be nothing, or I was going to lose the guy that I met, or something would happen, whatever it was. I always was afraid that I was going to lose something. So my advice to myself would be to enjoy the journey. What would yours be?
I want to comment on your advice to yourself, right? Softer edge. Tammin, you're in the most vulnerable business in the world, acting. Talent, right? I have to tell you something. I'm in the talent field now with fake talent. It's kind of how I look at it. It's almost like laughable to me. But if I hadn't built a business and found my myself and my capability
Mhm.
in a world where you could really measure it by dollars and cents and say I'm successful. The idea that I, in the first 3 years of Shark Tank, every day on that set thought, I'm terrible. They're going to get rid of me. They're going to get rid of me. Panicked about everything. All the endorsement deals, the speeches, by the week, I think they're going to go away. And this is coming from a woman who had a whole lifetime of great confidence and success where I could say, what am I afraid of? I've got the money, I've got the success. And yet that insecurity runs with that kind of work you do. The idea that you could actually even be comfortable on a Tuesday without worrying about a Wednesday is amazing. It's such a tough field, you know? So you could tell yourself as a younger self all you want, but you should have picked a different field. It's very hard.
But you know what? It was the only thing I mean, maybe I'm better at things now, but it was the only thing, like your mom said, it was the only thing I had a gift for. It was like, that was my gift, was to tell stories and to make people feel something. And that was my gift. And so unfortunately, it was a gift that was very hard to make into. It wasn't, there's a lot of luck, but it's hard to make that into a career. I've been very grateful that I have, but you know.
Yes. Well, in answer to your question, what would I have told myself? I never really thought about it because I was so busy running. I never talked to myself, you know. I don't know. Maybe I would have told myself to make sure I spent enough time with my mother. Believe it or not. Because as you get older and your mother gets elderly and eventually sick and you lose your parents, it makes you an orphan. As the years go on without your parents, I think you're more acutely aware of how precious they are. Not that I didn't. I mean, I vacationed with my parents. They're a very big part of my life. But if, you know, people say, if you could have one wish and who would you have dinner with or whatever, I would say, my mother.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, you know, I think maybe I could have slanted more than involved them a little more in my life when I was so busy in my 30s and 40s, running up that ladder. You know, I ignored them a little bit.
Yeah.
But whatever. You do what you do, right?
You do what you do.
Want to learn. Yeah.
And when you do have, because we're all human, we all have days when self-doubt creeps up and negative thoughts. And we talk a lot about that on the podcast about mental health and, you know, taking care of yourself. What are some things that you do to kind of, you know, pull that back and to kind of stop those thoughts or to like talk yourself out of that self-doubt?
Well, one thing I do is I don't worry about the small failures at all. I don't even think about them. Actually, I've trained my mind to not even think about them. They don't count. Almost like denial, I guess you would call it. I've learned that every time I could get through even a small failure, there's always on the flip side of that an opportunity if I'm not busy feeling sorry for myself. You know, I think the most successful people in life, they might have other traits that less successful people have. But the most important thing is they don't feel sorry for themselves, or they take less time feeling sorry for themselves. Everybody does. Themselves. But what's the difference? I watch successful people and I watch not successful people, and less successful people will milk a bad happening pretty long.
It's the victim mentality, right?
Right.
With the cheese, you know? So I think I've done that for my own mental health, to not allow myself to feel sorry for myself. After a minute, I pick up and look for, okay, what's the opportunity here? Because there always is. It's like a ball that bounces. The harder it hits, the higher it bounces. And all my successes have come right on the heels of a failure. So I really believe that. Like some people really believe that there's a God that created you. I really believe that when you have a failure, if you just learn enough to stay in the game, you're going to see that big bounce, the response, you know, because it's always been there if your eyes are open, you know. So far as physical health, I just work out every other day for an hour. That's all I do. And I have an easy body, so I don't have to work that hard at it. So that's it. That's my secret formula, which isn't so exciting, is it? I wish I could come up with a good answer.
No, it is. It's
and the white wine.
Stay stuck.
White wine.
On the
White
wine. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Have more white wine. That's
So we have one or two more questions and then we'll let you go, although I could talk to you forever. But in 2000, is this right? In 2019, you held a mock funeral for yourself. Is that true?
Party, yeah. What a party.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you, because this is Roxine, my greatest fear. Are you afraid of death? Because this is what keeps me up every single night.
Yes.
From like at least 11 till 12.
Oh my God. No, I'm not at least bit afraid of death, because I think on my stone, I will put no regrets. Okay. Because I haven't welched on anything. I did everything that, tits to the metal, as they say.
Nice.
I
Tits
love
to the
that.
metal. I love it.
Oh my gosh, I want to put my tits to a metal.
I've always been afraid of getting old. By 30, I wondered why I wasn't father-in-law. Oh my God, I'm losing my looks. By 40, I'm like, oh God. I remember at my 40th birthday, I called my mother and I said, I hate it. My tits are dropping. I look tired. When I feel lively, people say, oh, you look tired. I hated it. Right? That was before facelift number 1.
I was going to say there's surgeons for that,
Great advice was, she said, why don't you run out and get yourself a new camera and take as many selfies of yourself as you can. And I'm like, wait, she didn't hear my message here. She said, because then you can look at them next year, Barbara, and see how good you look this year.
I know. That's what I feel. I always look
Yes.
5 years ago and I'm like, why did I look so good? And I'm like, but in 5 years, I'll think that right now.
Yeah. But it'll be, this is the
Tell
time.
you, everybody, anyone who has pride doesn't
Mhm.
like getting older. Anyone who says, it's better than the alternate, which is what I hear. I'm like, days, I'd rather have the alternate. It sucks getting older. Everything that you value, that you took for granted, suddenly disappears and you discover new things each day. Okay.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So it's terrible. I've always had a fear of getting older, but that's the way it is. But I'm a believer in faceless. I've had 3. I only work from the neck up.
That's true.
And so, and with the right bras and the panties, you can fix that in a good dress. Okay. But if you can get a great surgeon,
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's the advice for our listeners. Get a facelift.
Get a great surgeon.
it sounds so vain. And I justify it
I
by
want my boobs a little higher. Yeah.
Yeah.
this is, I have to have, but trust me, if I was in the media business, I'd have the same faceless, without a doubt, because it's just not, I feel so vain saying this to you, but I
get it.
feel better when I look better. I always have. And so I'm working as hard as I could to look as good as I could without doing the whole Botox thing where I don't move. So I'm a believer in faceless. To be happy, faceless.
Well, right now I'm a believer in boob lifts. So
Yeah.
one day.
The children have wreaked havoc on the body. You see?
Yeah. Next time we see you, like I'll be like, oh, where's Tim? And all I can see is her breasts. Be like, it's fine.
One last question about Shark Tank.
Oh, yes, please.
Because everyone wants to know. We opened up some questions for our viewers, and I thought one of the most creative ones was marry, shag, kill.
Ooh.
Damon, Mark Cuban, and of course, Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful.
Marry, shag, kill.
Well, Mary Shag Kill, I mustn't have been on the set that day. It doesn't even sound familiar. What was the business?
So
No, you have to marry someone or shag someone or
and
kill someone.
And the 3 choices are Damon, Mark, and Mr. Wonderful.
Easy. Everybody would answer the same. I'd marry Mark. I've proposed to him at least a dozen times.
Yeah.
I really have. He doesn't take me seriously. He says, oh, thank you, Barbara. I'm brokenhearted. But no, I didn't marry Mark. He's got it all. He's genuine. He's a billionaire, not a millionaire. Big difference. Good looking. And he's nice. He's so generous. I mean, he's the whole package, but he's got a great wife. I hate to admit it.
It's always that problem.
Right.
Shag.
Shag. Who is Shag?
Who would I shag?
Mhm.
Yeah. Damon.
I'll tell you, Damon has the sexiest hands. It can't just be the hands. The way
Well, you know what they say, big hands.
You know what they say about their hands.
the way he uses them, like I know that would be my choice without a doubt. I'd be like, yeah.
And then you kill Mr.
Kill
Wonderful
Mr.
because I've
Wonderful.
heard that. So why doesn't he say thank you? I don't understand that. Isn't the whole meaning of life like love and gratitude?
Wait, how did you know he doesn't say thank you? That's curious.
Because you put it on your social media.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I don't know if he realizes that. I have written myself thank you notes on set and had him sign them. Like, thank you, Barbara, for giving me your masseuse last night that you're looking for all week and you let me have her instead. I love you. And I have him sign. Kevin, I keep it. I make him thank me. He doesn't say thank you ever. It's amazing. And he knows I'm pissed over it. Ugh.
That guy.
Why doesn't he?
Mm.
Honestly, I don't think anyone who feels thankfulness will say thank you. I think, hey, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
It's a missing gene. And I tell him, And I tell his wife she should leave him, but she doesn't. And his employees, I say, I could give you a better job and you get a lot of thank yous on my side.
Well, you are one in a million. We are so grateful to
Yes.
have you
A lot of
here.
fun chatting with you girls. I got a lot of
Thank
good
you.
energy. Ooh,
Thank you
Oh,
so.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much. You put
We
that
love
out there. This podcast is going to grow, and we're going to tour one day and
Yes.
next year, and we'll have you on
could
our
do it sooner.
stage.
You could do it sooner than next year.
Okay. Well, isn't it December?
That's early next year.
Early next year. Yeah.
Yes, we need to put the pin in the calendar. It's going to happen.
We're going to make it happen.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara. Guys, please don't forget to rate, subscribe, and comment on Women on Top Official on Instagram.
And Women on Top podcast on Facebook. And we have a clubhouse group, Women on Top. But also, Barbara, please tell everybody where they can find you. And I know you have an amazing podcast as well.
Yes, I do. It's called Business Unusual, and you can find it available or wherever you listen to podcasts. Everybody knows where to find podcasts. Come on.
Everyone knows you.
Yeah, everyone knows you. I
you
know.
are.
Hello, Shark Tank.
I know.
I mean, the list goes on.
Well, thank you guys so much. We love you. I am Tammin
Thank you.
Sursock,
And I am Roxy Manning.
and we are
Going back to
Women
And
on
Top.
Top.